Pruning pepper plants is today's video, and I will show you how to prune a plant. I'm going to use this one as the first example, and what's going to be interesting is we're going to compare this one against its pot mate, which is this one, and let's see which one ends up doing better. I'm Gail, and welcome to my garden. First, why prune a pepper plant? Well, let's take a look at it. You can see that in this particular plant, it's kind of, it doesn't have a lot of bunching in it, or it doesn't have a lot of extra leaves. If you have just this single stalk growing up like this one does, you're only really going to get peppers off of the growing stem. However, if you prune the pepper plant, you'll end up getting growing stems off of all these little nodes. So that's why we go ahead and prune. Now I do have a bud here, but I'm going to ignore it. Since I want to prune this plant, I'm going to get rid of this bud. Now what we have here is the growing point for this. And what we want to do is cut it off. In my case, I'm just going to take my fingers and snip. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to take off all the extra leaves up here, if I can get them, and make sure I've got the growing point. Now that's what it looks like. What we're going to do is, I do pepper videos about every other week, and we're going to see what this looks like come 2 weeks from now. Let's go ahead and do an example on another plant so we can check that one out in a couple more weeks. Now, if you remember from my last video, you can see that this plant, which is Bill striped, has grown very leggy. This is one of the ones where I kind of missed planting it, so it's stretched and everything. Okay, so what are we going to do for this particular plant? Now, we can see the growing point on this one, but what I'm going to do is more radical. I'm going to cut this one. Let's see if we can see that. I'm going to cut this one just above the tallest branch. Snip. So you can see that now we have an extremely scrawny looking plant. Well, we'll see how this one does in a couple of weeks on the next pepper tour. Okay, here's one. This is a daddle pepper. And this one has gotten very, very leggy because I had it in between two taller plants. It wasn't getting a lot of sun. Now remember I talked earlier about how you want to have leaves and other branches sprouting from these nodes. Let's take a look farther on down the plant and you can see kind of what I mean. Now you see I have some leaves sprouting from some nodes further on down. Now I haven't topped this plant yet, I haven't pruned it. But this is what we're going for because these will produce other branches which will produce more flowers. This one, well, you guessed it, I'm going to give it a radical haircut. So this one, see how far down I'm doing it? Snip. Now I didn't want to do it with my fingernails, I might have been able to, but this is going to be a much cleaner cut. And here's what I cut off. Now if I wanted to, I could probably try planting this and see if it'll grow. Pull off these extra leaves. And the reason I'm pulling them off, and I really didn't mean to strip the bark there, which you can see I stripped it some. The reason being is this plant is going to, in order to root, it's going to have to handle these extra leaves. And the more leaves it has to worry about getting water up to, the harder it's going to be for this particular plant to go ahead and do an extra root. So as you can see, I'm taking off pretty much all the plant. What I'm going to do is I am going to put this in some damp soil. So I'm going to use probably cocoa coir and put it in there and let it root. I mean, it's going to take 2-3 weeks probably before some roots. Now I filled this plastic cup with cocoa coir, and I also have some holes in the bottom so I can let the excess water out. So that's cocoa coir, and then what I'm going to do is take a little bit of earthworm castings, and I'm going to mix it in a little bit. Don't need a whole lot. So just mix it in with your fingers, and that's fine. Then I'm going to take some water and pour it in, because I want the mixture to be quite damp when I put my cutting in. So we can see that it's already dripping out. That's pretty much what we want. Now I'm going to put in a tiny bit more of the earthworm casting. I'm going to put a little bit more water in. And it's dripping again. Next, I'm going to just take my finger and poke a little hole. So I've got my hole poked. And I'm going to put it down fairly far. So I'm down to about my first knuckle. I'm going to take my little cutting, put it down, and actually I'm going to make the hole a little deeper because I want most of this stem to be in the mixture. So now I've got it in, and I'm just going to push the coco coir and earthworm castings around it, and then just gently press it down. Now you don't want to, really smush it down. You just want it to be fairly gentle. So you can see how far down I've planted this. I'm going to give it just a little bit more water, and it's okay, it's going to drip through again. Now I'm going to set this in a place where it's going to get filtered sunlight. So that's it for today. This was Pepper Pruning 101, and I hope you've enjoyed it. This is Gail signing out for the day, saying have yourself a great day, and come back and see me in a couple weeks, and we can check out what this little guy is doing, what this guy is doing, and all the rest of the ones I pruned. See you later.